When many people read the Bible and encounter the phrase, "fear God," it can feel confusing. Why would Scripture call people to fear the very God who is described as loving, merciful, and compassionate? At first glance, the phrase may sound as though it is calling believers to live in constant terror. But when we look more closely at the biblical meaning of the phrase, we discover something very different. When we encounter the word fear in our modern world, our minds often jump to feelings of anxiety, terror, or dread. But in the rich, layered language of the Bible, the idea of fear frequently carries a much deeper, more profound meaning than simple fright. To truly grasp the heart of Scripture, we must first understand its language, and this concept is central to our relationship with God. The original Hebrew text offers us a crucial distinction, primarily between two different kinds of fear. One is the trembling dread of an enemy, the other a soul-stirring reverence for the divine. In Hebrew thought, the phrase, "the fear of the Lord," or almost never refers to being scared God in a terrifying way. Instead, it describes a posture of profound reverence, a deep and abiding awe, and a willing recognition of God's absolute authority and sovereignty over all creation. It is the overwhelming sense of wonder that fills your heart when you gaze at a star-filled sky and contemplate the one who set it all in motion. It is a response not of cowering, but of worship. This is not the fear one feels before a cruel, unpredictable ruler. That kind of fear is rooted in self-preservation and the threat of punishment. The fear of the Lord is relational. It is the respectful honor a loving child gives to a wise and powerful parent. A fear not of harm, but of disappointing them, of marring a precious and life-giving relationship. It reflects the deep internal awareness that God is utterly holy, infinitely powerful, and supremely worthy of our highest respect and deepest adoration. This beautiful foundational concept is woven throughout the entirety of the Scriptures, from the awe of Moses at the burning bush to the worship of the elders in Revelation. However, one of the clearest and most concentrated collections of teachings on this topic appears in the book of Proverbs, the Bible's great book of wisdom. Here, the fear of the Lord is presented not as a burden, but as a gift, the very foundation upon which a wise and righteous life is built. The opening chapters describe the fear of the Lord as the beginning of wisdom. This statement reveals something important about how biblical wisdom works. Wisdom does not begin with intelligence or knowledge alone. It begins with recognizing the source of truth. When a person acknowledges God as the foundation of wisdom, they begin to see the world through a different lens. Another example appears in the book of Ecclesiastes, where the final summary of the entire book is given in a simple statement: "Fear God and keep His commandments." Here again, the phrase describes a life oriented toward respect for God's guidance and moral order. It reflects the understanding that human life flourishes when it aligns with divine wisdom. Throughout the Old Testament, the fear of the Lord is often connected with trust and obedience. It represents the recognition that God's ways lead toward life. But the New Testament also speaks about this idea in ways that help deepen our understanding. When Jesus taught about God as Father, He emphasized both God's compassion and His authority. When we look at the teachings of Jesus, we see a beautiful and profound paradox in how He describes God. On one hand, Jesus paints a picture of an intimately personal Father, one who is deeply loving and exquisitely attentive to our every need. He speaks of a God who knows the number of hairs on our head, who clothes the lilies of the field with splendor, and who does not let a single sparrow fall to the ground without His notice. This is a God we can approach with the trust of a child, a loving Abba, Father. Yet, on the other hand, this same loving Father is presented as utterly holy, the sovereign creator of the universe, a being of pure light and unapproachable majesty. He is the King of kings and Lord of lords, worthy of our deepest reverence and most profound respect. It is in the tension between these two truths, God's immanence and His transcendence, His closeness and His otherness, that we begin to understand the true meaning of the fear of the Lord. In this sense, the fear of the Lord becomes closely related to awe. It is not a cowering dread or a servile terror, but a trembling wonder, It is the feeling we experience when we stand before something infinitely vast, overwhelmingly powerful, and breathtakingly beautiful, something that inspires both profound humility and the highest respect. This is the feeling that causes our own concerns to shrink and our hearts to swell with adoration. Think of how you feel when standing at the foot of a massive mountain range, its peaks disappearing into the clouds. Or when you gaze up at a night sky far from the city, a velvet canvas filled with countless stars and the sweep of the galaxy. There is a sense of being small, yet simultaneously connected to something magnificent and eternal. The experience does not produce terror. It doesn't make you want to run and hide in fear for your life. That is the fear of judgment, the fear of an enemy. The awe of God is entirely different. Instead, it produces a sense of wonder and a right sizing of our perspective. It quiets the soul and realigns our priorities. In that moment of awe, we see ourselves not as insignificant, but as a cherished part of a grand divine design. This reverent awe draws us closer to God, not to push us away. It is a holy fear that leads to wisdom, worship, and a life lived in the beautiful, humbling presence of our Creator. The biblical concept of fearing God carries a similar dimension of profound respect, but it is infinitely deeper and more transformative. It's not the cowering fear of a slave before a tyrant, but the reverent awe of a child before a loving, all-powerful, and perfectly wise Father. This isn't a fear that pushes us away, but one that draws us closer, into a relationship defined by trust and adoration. It's a recognition of His sheer otherness, His holiness, and His magnificent glory that leaves us breathless. This holy fear, this reverential awe, is the very foundation of wisdom. It reminds believers that God is greater than human understanding and that life gains its ultimate meaning when lived in relationship with Him. When we truly grasp a sense of His scale compared to our own, our priorities naturally begin to shift. The frantic chase for worldly validation, for fleeting pleasures, or for personal glory begins to fade in the light of His eternal significance. We start to see that our purpose is not self-created, but is discovered within His grand, unfolding narrative for all of creation. This kind of reverence can transform how people approach everyday decisions, elevating the mundane to the sacred. Suddenly, the question is no longer just, what do I want? But what honors God in this moment? This perspective changes everything. It infuses our work, our family life, and our private thoughts with a divine purpose. Every choice, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity for worship, a chance to reflect the character of the one we hold in awe. When a person recognizes God's infinite wisdom and sovereign authority, they become more attentive to the way they live. They understand that the Creator of the universe has provided a blueprint for human flourishing in His Word. This isn't a restrictive set of rules, but a loving guidepost, protecting us from harm and directing us toward true joy and peace. As a result, they begin to consider how their actions affect others, seeing them not as competitors or obstacles, but as fellow image-bearers of God. Through this lens of holy fear, they develop true humility, recognizing their dependence on God for every breath. They cultivate gratitude, thanking Him for His unmerited grace. And they embrace a deeper sense of responsibility, knowing they are stewards of the gifts, time, and relationships He has entrusted to them. This is the beautiful paradox of fearing the Lord. It is the path to true freedom, purpose, and love. In this way, the fear of the Lord becomes a foundation for ethical living. It is not about fear that paralyzes, it is about reverence that guides. The Bible also emphasizes that this reverence leads to security rather than anxiety. In the Psalms, those who fear the Lord are described as people who experience protection, guidance, and peace. The phrase reminds believers that true wisdom comes from aligning one's life with God's purposes. In a world filled with competing voices, values, and ideas, this perspective offers clarity. It invites people to look beyond temporary influences and consider the deeper foundations of truth. So when the Bible speaks about fearing God, it is not calling believers to live in fear. It is calling them to live with reverence, humility, and awe. It is an invitation to recognize the greatness of God and to allow that recognition to shape the way we think, act, and live. Thank you for watching. If this message spoke to your heart or opened your eyes, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more truth-filled, spirit-led content. Together, we can be a voice for the voiceless, a light in the darkness, and a force for good in this broken world. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next video.